today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. What is our second look at the upcoming Amanda Serrano versus Stevie Morgan fight on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Mike Perry. Initially, it was supposed to be Mike Tyson, but Mike had an ulcer that flared up, so he couldn't fight. Mike Perry is standing in his place, and they are effectively saving the date. Something similar applies to Amanda Serrano. She was supposed to be fighting Katie Taylor. She still is, but it'll be at a later date. She's fighting Stevie Morgan. In the interim, sporting a professional record of 46 wins with 2 losses, 1 draw, 30 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 49 fights, just 1 away from 50. To Stevie Morgan, who sports a professional record, a respectable one, of 14 wins with 1 loss, no draws, 13 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 15 professional bouts. It looks good on paper, but what do I tell you? What do I say all the time? There is more to boxing than what you see on paper. Stevie Morgan does have a respectable record so far. But what kind of opponents has she been fighting? You have to look deeper, and that's what brings us here. You know, I tried to find footage of Stevie Morgan in action, and there's almost nothing out there. Nothing on Stevie save a 20 or 30 second reel of her pouncing on some overmatched girl in the corner, which tells me that the level at which Stevie is operating is so low on the radar. Her fights are not televised. Many of her opponents seldom ever make it out of the first round. What kind of girls is she fighting? It's quite a leap. Quite a step up in competition. Fighting an unheralded journeywoman with losses in the double digits in Jennifer Rodriguez to fighting one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in the sport. So many of Stevie Morgan's fights end abruptly. So many of those fights end in the first round. And Edgar Berlanga, Puerto Rico's Edgar Berlanga, almost immediately comes to mind because very early in his career, he racked up a bunch of early knockouts and first-round knockouts. But while that's good for the fighter's highlight reel, that's not good for the fighter's development, that you weren't out there longer against a more formidable fighter who could push back, teach you something. The opportunity to work on things and learn something. Being out there under the hot lights for more than just a few seconds or more than just the first round. When I see all these first-round knockouts for Stevie Morgan, it's Edgar that comes to mind, and how all those first-round knockouts didn't help his development. I'd wager all of Stevie's first-round knockouts, they didn't necessarily help hers either. I don't think she's used to a girl who can push back and fight back. It's not a knock on her, you understand. I get that she's not with a major promotional outfit, so you don't got all that money behind you and that promotional push. You can only work with what you've got, and you can only fight who's in front of you. But who's been in front of Stevie? Well, it's a real far cry from who's about to be in front of her. Amanda Serrano. Amanda might knock this girl out. It's been about 3 years since Amanda Serrano racked up one of those highlight reel knockouts. The last time she knocked a girl out was Daniela Bermudez of Argentina with 2 vicious body shots that sent Daniela to the canvas. It feels like it's been a long while since Amanda knocked somebody out. So why do you figure she's gonna knock Stevie out? Well, even though it's at a higher weight, against an opponent that has never been knocked out before, I'd wager Stevie's not used to being pushed back. She's the one that's used to doing all the pushing. So when she's in there with somebody that's not going to shell up and shy away from the pocket, shell up and shy away from the action, somebody with power and volume and strength of their own, I don't think Stevie's going to know what to do, because nobody she's fought so far can prepare her, would have prepared her for somebody like Amanda Serrano. Even better that Amanda doesn't have to chase her. As stated, there's very limited footage of Stevie Morgan out there, but because so many of her fights end in the first round, you get the impression that she's usually the aggressive one coming forward, looking for the knockout. So if Amanda doesn't have to chase her, that makes Amanda's job a lot easier, because that's how most girls survive against Amanda, is moving around and moving away. I don't think Stevie's going to do that. I think she's going to come forward. Because it's all she knows. It's the only experience she's had so far. Going out on a limb in spite of a few intangibles that, yeah, Stevie's never been knocked out, and this fight is at a higher weight. I do think Amanda can stop her. I do think Amanda can close the show and knock her out. Men's lightweight news. Stevenson is the new Lomachenko. None of the big names want to fight him, says Malignaggi. Both Paulie Malignaggi and Teddy Atlas praised the boxing ability and intelligence of Javonte Davis after his 8th round knockout of Frank Martin on Saturday night at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. While looking ahead to potential tank rivals, like Shakur Stevenson, Davis made his first defense of his newly obtained WBA lightweight title with the victory, since being elevated after Devin Haney left the lightweight division. During the ProBox TV post-fight show, Paulie Malignaggi and Teddy Atlas shared their insights on Javonte Davis and his performance. The Baltimore native landed a crushing knockout blow over Frank Martin, who now trains in Dallas. This victory prompted the obvious question every fighter hates. What's next?
Not Shakur.
We know that after the fight, Javonte Davis played with the idea of moving up to super lightweight and having a rematch with either Isaac Cruz or Ryan Garcia. But now that Ryan's been suspended for the rest of the year, those plans are suspended, aren't they? At least until the following year. So Javonte would have to fight somebody else.
There's still Usyk.
Yeah, but Isaac's fighting in August. So if Javonte were to fight him, it would have to be in either late fall or winter. Frank Martin did start well, but you could sense that mental pressure that was being applied by Javonte Davis was bothering Martin, Paulie Malignaggi said. It was forcing him to be uncomfortable. Typically, pressure busts pipes, right? In reality, Javonte never looked uncomfortable going forward and keeping that pressure up, Malignaggi continued. It was basically what you kind of expected. Not so much because it is a Javonte Davis performance and he loses the early rounds, then comes back and gets you late, but also in the way that he did it. A lot of times, earlier in these fights, he looks a little lackluster and comes back to get you. I didn't think he was lackluster early on. He was making an effort to put that mental pressure on Martin despite Martin's early success.
I think Paulie's overthinking it.
Overanalyzing it. It took Javonte, 8 rounds to finally get Frank out of there? If he could have got him out of there sooner, you don't think he would have?
In 6 rounds instead of 8, or 4 rounds instead of 6, or 2 rounds instead of 4.
Teddy Atlas added that Davis, known for his punching power, is underrated in terms of his fight IQ and craft in the ring. Because of his powerful punches, many people overlook his other skills. As good as Martin is, there's nothing he did better than Davis, Atlas said. Anything Martin could do, it is kind of like that song. Anything you can do, I can do better. I really felt that was the theme. Martin is a good fighter, Atlas continued. Technical, textbook, boxing 101, sweet science guy, but Davis is too. That is what we forget sometimes because of his power.
Another guy who's overanalyzing it.
If Javonte could have knocked him out sooner, you don't think he wanted to? You don't think he would have? If he didn't, it's because Frank made it difficult.
By moving around.
And Frank don't move around the box on the level of a Shakur Stevenson. When asked if anyone could challenge Davis in his prime, the panelists brought up fellow unbeaten lightweight Shakur Stevenson. Stevenson is a difficult out for anyone, Atlas said. He is not just difficult to beat, but difficult to look good against. That's the problem, too. He controls range so well. Here is my issue. Shakur is the new Lomachenko, Malignaggi added.
Before it was Lomachenko, none of the big names wanted to name Lomachenko.
By moving around, moving lateral, setting traps, and using the ring, Frank bought himself about 8 rounds. And Frank don't box on the level of a Shakur Stevenson. Shakur could fight an even better version of the fight that Frank fought, to where he doesn't start to slow down, and he doesn't get tired by the 8th round. He doesn't get knocked out as a result of it. I stand firm on my square that if you put Shakur in the ring with Javonte Davis, Shakur takes him to school.
It's not a good style matchup for Javonte.
The new fight to make is Javonte Davis versus Shakur Stevenson, and that is probably why boxing is not going to make it. Malignaggi concluded a pessimistic view.
But he's pulling punches. He's still pulling punches. Because if you can go after Canelo for having not fought David Benavidez, why are you not going after Javonte for not fighting Shakur?
It's just another nauseating chapter in the same book, where the people in boxing don't keep the same energy for everybody, not across the board. You got all these negative things to say about Canelo because he hasn't fought David Benavidez yet. But what about Javonte, who skipped out on Lomachenko for years, then didn't fight Teofimo after him, or George Kambosos, or Devin Haney, and underneath it all, you know, he's not about to fight Shakur either.
He's not.
So why don't you get on your soapbox and talk about that, sermonize about that, preach about that, how Javonte Davis claims to be the face of boxing and the A-side to everybody. Doesn't that then mean the responsibility is on him to make the fight?
Shakur's going to be a free agent soon.
If the impediment has been that he's with Top Rank and he was contractually bound to Top Rank, that deal is about to be up. All he's got to do is beat Artem Haratunian, then he's all yours if you want him.
How could the impediment have been Shakur being with Top Rank when Lomachenko is with Top Rank, and the word round the campfire is they're about to enter into negotiations for Vasyl Lomachenko. He's with Top Rank.
So clearly, the impediment isn't a fighter being with Top Rank. No, the impediment is they know who to fight and when to fight him. They know Vasyl Lomachenko's a lot older and a lot slower than he used to be. He's lost 1 or 2 fights in recent years, and now is the right time.
Paulie, for some reason, doesn't want to say that, but he's got all these other things to say about Canelo.
All this pressure that he wants to put on Canelo, who is by and large a bigger draw, far bigger than Javonte Davis, and a more proven fighter by and large than Javonte Davis. They never keep the same energy.
Shakur is stuck between a rock and a hard place because he's in the Who Needs You club. So now he's entertaining the idea of free agency and seeing what doors might open if he becomes one.
But look at what's going on with Devin Haney. He's a free agent. His mandated fight with Sandor Martin just went to purse bid, and only Top Rank bid on it.
And that's only because they promote Sandor.
They didn't bid a lot of money, the kind of money that Devin Haney is looking for, and he's a free agent. See, free agency isn't all it's cracked up to be.
You have to be in demand.
To make the most of it, you have to be in demand. And unfortunately for Shakur, after the De Los Santos fight, he's not. So not only does he have to go in there and have a great showing against Artem Haratunian, but he really needs to sit down and think, is free agency right for me? Or do I end up like Devin?
There are pros and cons to being a free agent. There are pros and cons to being signed to a major promoter. Right now, I think that's what's best for Shakur. You sign to them, they make you a Berenchik fight, a unification match with him.
If you make that commitment, but if you don't, well, there's no guarantee that you get that unification match. Somebody else might get a crack at the apple with that guy. Say, Raymond Muratalla or Keyshawn Davis.
Shakur's got to be smart.
As much as I think that Shakur would take Javonte Davis to school, the reality is that fight might never see the light of day.
You got to work with what you've got. You leave Top Rank, you ain't got a whole lot to work with.
And they don't owe you nothing. Not if you're a free agent, but if you sign to them, they have an obligation to promote your fights and get you fights.
So think about what you want to do.
And finally, in men's heavyweight news, Tyson Fury. On the video of him falling over while drunk, I got pissed up about 2 weeks ago and fell over on my face. Didn't do any damage though, still good looking. I've had lots of messages and people phoning asking if I'm alright. You're a grown man and have a drunken night out, and all of a sudden people think you're gonna jump in front of a train.
Well, I mean, you're the one always carrying on about your mental health and your depression, and you did just lose to Alexander Usyk.
Obviously, from my past history, people are concerned. But I've been just chilling out, spending time with my family. I've seen a lot of people rush to Tyson Fury's defense, that he got pissed, fell on his face, and I feel that they wouldn't keep the same energy if it were someone else. If it were Anthony Joshua face planting outside of a bar that he was escorted out of, is that what they'd be saying?
Let him live a little.
He's a grown man. He's entitled to have a drink. He just made a bunch of money. No, if it were Anthony Joshua face planting outside of a bar that he just got escorted out of, I think the energy and the attitude would be a lot different. Fury on the Alexander Usyk rematch. I've got to get him out of there because I'm not going to get a decision. It's unfortunate because it's hard enough to win a fight just by winning it. Never mind knowing you've got to knock someone out. But I'm confident and looking forward to the challenge. I hear he's got a broken jaw and a broken eye socket. So get yourself well and I'll see you in December.
If he had a broken jaw and a broken eye socket, you wouldn't be able to see him in December because he'd be recuperating from surgery.
How much things change based on how much Tyson Fury exaggerates. Where Fury says he gave the guy a broken jaw, the guy had a chipped tooth. An impacted tooth.
Not a broken jaw.
And where Tyson Fury says Usyk had a fractured orbital, you know that same Usyk was just on the 3 knockdown rule with Stephen Kimothy and Mario Lopez?
No broken eye socket. No news of surgery for a broken eye socket. He was there, right as rain.
Nothing wrong, same as always. Is this what Tyson Fury has to tell himself to cope with the loss? I've watched the fight back and still got the same answer. I thought I won. Usyk knows he didn't beat me. I thought I boxed his head right off of him for most of the rounds. He busted my nose in round 8, got the 10-8 round in 9, and I gave him round 10, but other than that, he didn't give him any other rounds. It was actually a lot easier than I thought it'd be. People said he was hard to hit. I was lighting him up with 4-punch combinations and laughing at him. My problem was I probably had too much fun. It was too easy. It was like I was in there with a local amateur boxer. I was enjoying it too much, messing around, and paid the ultimate price in round 9.
You're saying it was like being in there with a local amateur boxer. Is that saying that a local amateur boxer would beat you from one end of the ring to the other, and then finally the other till the referee has to save you?
Because Mark Nelson saved him, if Usyk was allowed to continue and Mark Nelson hadn't intervened, he would have kept hitting Fury, and Fury would have went down. Fury would have went down, he wasn't going to get back up. His equilibrium was clearly gone, and he spent the next 2 rounds trying to straighten it out and get it back.
The most I could give Fury was 4 rounds?
5 if you're generous, which I'm not.
Besides the point. In the build-up of the fight, you heard Tyson Fury make all sorts of empty promises. But at no point in that fight did he do to Usyk what Usyk did to him.
You said you were going to be too big and too strong. That guy didn't hit the deck once.
The best thing Fury did in that whole fight was keep distance from the smaller man, essentially retreat from him. Then as soon as he started stepping into his shots, in round 9, he got caught.
So you go ahead and pick up where you left off. You go ahead and try to start earlier this time. The earlier you start, the earlier you get caught.
Because you don't do anything better than this guy. You're just bigger.
The relevance of you face planting outside of a bar in between fights, in between the first fight with Usyk and the second, that highlights what I've been talking about, that you don't take care of yourself.
He does.
You've got to lie about his physical condition. Broken jaw, broken eye socket.
Give me a break.
You wish you did that kind of damage. You wish, so that you wouldn't have to see him again in December. But like I said, if all of that were true, that rematch, it'd get pushed back the next year.
He's got to come up with a new game plan. I'm not completely sure what it's going to be.
He says he thinks he can't win a decision when you're the house fighter. You know that, right? I mean, you're already taller than he is, longer than he is, younger too, and heavier. The promotion is behind you, not him.
Queensberry.
You had every conceivable advantage going into that fight, so that you can make yourself out to be the victim when you lose.
Yeah, this is why I think he's gonna lose again.